All right, tonight we're going to step away from the city lights. We're heading deep into the heart of rural India, where folklore, well, it's not just a story. For some people, it's a terrifying reality. We're going to explore a few chilling accounts, and these come directly from the folks who claim to have lived through them.
So, what does happen when a spooky story told around a fire suddenly becomes your life? We're going to dive into 3 different case files that really blur that thin line between legend and a real horrifying event.
So, our first story. It starts on what should have been a totally normal night. There's a student, her name is Payal, and she's hosting her father's friend's daughter, Rashmi. Simple enough, right? They invite her to stay for dinner, and she ends up just staying the night. A decision that, well, it's going to turn horrifying pretty fast.
Okay, so picture this. Payal is up late studying for exams, and Rashmi is asleep nearby. But at some point, Rashmi gets up to use the outside toilet, and when she comes back, something else comes back with her. What starts as a quiet evening just completely spirals into something much, much darker. You see how this builds? It's not some sudden jump scare, it's this slow, methodical creep of terror. First, it's just a sound, faint laughter. Then, a physical change in the room. It gets super cold. Then, it gets physical, a real oppressive weight on her head. And then, she wakes up to see Rashmi just staring at her. Chilling.
So after dozing off again, Payal is violently woken up, and bam! That slow burn of fear just explodes into this moment of absolute terror. The thing isn't just watching anymore. Oh no, it is making its move.
And then, the thing that's wearing Rashmi's face speaks. In this chilling voice, it just comes right out and says, "I have come to take you." And in the next second, it grabs a pencil from the table, lunges at Payal, and stabs her right next to her eye, tearing her ear.
This is the turning point. The family rushes in, and crucially, the aunt. She's not just panicking. She seems to know exactly what's happening. She uses this traditional knowledge to actually fight back, confronting the entity head-on and calling on a higher power to drive it out.
You know, this is something you hear about a lot in these possession stories. The actual victim, Rashmi, has zero memory of the attack. Her memory just cuts out. All she remembers is seeing 2 glowing red eyes in a tree, and then nothing until after the entity was gone.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit for our second case. We're moving away from that kind of violent, malevolent horror into a story that's more about profound tragedy and a spirit with a very, very different reason for being there.
So here we meet a young woman named Maya. Her life was already incredibly difficult, just filled with abuse. But after she gave birth to a daughter, instead of the son her in-laws were demanding, well, the torment just got even worse.
The only person Maya had, her only source of comfort, was her neighbor, Komal. But Komal had to leave for a family function for several weeks. And that departure, it marks this critical and ultimately tragic turning point in the story.
So imagine this. Weeks later, Kamal finally gets back. The very first thing she does is go to check on Maya's baby. And she finds Maya standing there, smiling, looking peaceful. Maya hands her the child and says this one simple, powerful thing. Take care of her.
But here comes the just soul-crushing twist. Komal goes home, tells her mother-in-law about seeing Maya, and her mother-in-law tells her the horrifying truth. Maya had died just 2 days after Komal left the village.
See, this wasn't about horror. This was an act of love. Maya's spirit stayed behind for one single reason, to make sure her daughter was given to the one person in the world she trusted. It was a mother's final protective act.
All right, on to our final case file. This one's a short, sharp, and deeply unsettling story about a thief who learned a terrifying lesson because he picked the absolute wrong person to mess with on a dark, deserted road.
So the setup seems pretty straightforward for our narrator, a thief named Rohit. He spots what he thinks is an easy target, a frail old woman carrying a heavy bag that jingles. Easy score, right? He snatches it and takes off, thinking he's just made a clean getaway.
He stops under this single streetlight to check out his prize. But when he opens the bag, there's no money, no jewels. Instead, he finds the kind of thing that comes straight out of a nightmare.
And this is the moment of just pure, brain-breaking terror. As Rohit is staring into this bag, in total disbelief, the severed head opens its eyes and looks right at him. He's just frozen, can't move, can't scream.
and then the head's lips start to move like it's about to speak. This encounter is like a bolt of supernatural justice, and it's so profound that it completely changes his life. He runs back, returns the bag, and quits his life of crime forever.
So we've looked at 3 really different cases, right? One of violent possession, one about tragic love, and one about some kind of supernatural justice. What are the common threads we can pull from all of these?
Well, you start to see a pattern, don't you? The spirits are often tied to specific places in nature, like a tree or a dark road. People are always most vulnerable when they're alone, especially at night. And, maybe most important, the supernatural isn't just one thing. It can be evil, it can be protective, it can even be a force for justice. These aren't just scary stories, you see. They're like cautionary tales that reinforce a whole cultural worldview.
And that's really the question I want to leave you with. Are these just stories to explain things we don't understand, or are they something more? Are they warnings, disguised as folklore, about very real dangers that might just be waiting for us in the dark? It's definitely something to think about the next time you hear a strange noise in the night.